early February 2023. We have 3 separate UAPs, that's unidentified aerial phenomena, recorded as being shot down by the United States military across 3 separate days. This is hot on the heels of a Chinese spy balloon being shot down as well. Join myself and Neil for this very special, very exciting edition of Aliens Explored, where we delve into these UAPs being shot down and try to disseminate the facts from the fictions being put out by them.
Aliens Explored is a weekly podcast exploring famous and obscure cases of UFO sightings, alien abductions and other strange events from both a believing and a skeptical perspective, whilst keeping an open mind. I'm Stu Jackson, a professional actor and amateur ufologist with a particular interest in the crop circle phenomenon. I'll be debating that otherworldly visitations are real. The truth is out there.
And I'm Neil Kelly. I'm a professional actor as well and used to work for the military as an intelligence analyst. I'll be arguing from a more doubtful point of view. I mean, it's all a bit far-fetched, isn't it? Hello listeners and welcome back to Aliens Explored. Normally your weekly look at the mysterious skies and beyond and what goes on in back rooms of shady government offices and such. However, today we're doing a special episode which it won't go out to any particular schedule. In fact, we'll just whack it out as soon as it's ready, won't we? Not whack out quick and knock off early. I'm one of your hosts, Neil Kelly.
And also knocking off early, I'm your other host, Stu Jackson. Yes, quite rightly. This is a special because special things have been happening of late in the press.
Stuff that we feel we should discuss in a timely manner, while it's still fresh in people's minds.
Well, yes. I mean, there are developments happening all the time. But we didn't want to sort of fall too far behind with this one because it is really kind of interesting. So we are recording this, it has to be said, early evening on Sunday the 19th of February 2023, depending on when you're listening to this from. It could be a different year. So 19th of Feb. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of I'm guessing, I mean, Neil, even as a person outside of ufology and UFO Twitter and what have you, I'm guessing you've been unable to avoid seeing this. Would that be right?
I would guess. I would say that's fairly accurate. Yeah, as anyone who's paid even a passing attention to the news, it's been inescapable. This one, it's been a very big story. So, yeah.
It has,
and of course, it's provoking all kinds of speculation in the absence of any established facts at our time of recording.
Well, I mean, here's where we get into it. So there have been a few media stories. We ought to say what we're actually here talking about, just in case anybody
Let's stop being mysterious. This whole thing's mysterious enough without us being mysterious about it.
Yeah. So we are here talking about the 3 very recent UAPs that have been shot down. Some over America, some over Canada. I think
one over Canada, wasn't it? One over Alaska
yes.
But the big one, the one that really made the news, was the 200-foot balloon that drifted all the way across the continental United States, President Biden said that it shouldn't be shot down while it's over. Well, there's a chance it might sort of fall onto a populated area because apparently this thing is really big, and someone said it will be like a school bus falling through your roof. So that sort of size.
Now, interesting that you raised that one. So that one you're talking about there was the Chinese spy balloon that was shot down on February the 4th.
Once it had passed across the states and was out into the sea, which of course made it more difficult to recover. I mean, if they'd shot it down and taken the risk that maybe it'll land on a town or a school or something, but yeah, at least we'll have the evidence.
I'm fascinated by a thing that has happened here already with yourself. So, actually, there have been 3 other UAPs shot down other than that one. So 4 if you include the Chinese balloon.
Okay, is UAP the right term for them? Because they are definitely physical objects, aren't they? They're not an aerial phenomenon. It is a flying object that's susceptible to a missile.
Well, I was excluding the Chinese balloon as a UAP because we've identified what that is. But what has been happening in the media, and I suspect, I mean, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure, but I suspect there's an element of what's happened here is the media, or the, shall we say, the state-influenced media. I won't say state-controlled, but, we know. But yes, the state-influenced media have started to conflate the UAPs and the Chinese balloon. But they're completely...
Well, of course...
So,
I mean, this is one area of... There are some areas of journalism where they are entirely reliant upon official sources. That no one has their own way of verifying an object flying at 40 to 60,000 feet above the ground. If the military say they've detected something and shot it down and what it was, you kind of have to take their word for it unless there are some discrepancies in what they're saying. But yes, as you say, they have conflated them, and certainly in my mind, they're fully conflated. This is just 3 things, even though they seem to be different shaped things. The balloon that made the most news was the Chinese said it was a weather balloon. I'm inclined to believe them. I mean, what
really?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
To be fair, I wasn't expecting us to talk about the Chinese balloon. I've seen that as a completely separate fourth.
But it has become conflated. It's been all about this big Chinese balloon at 60,000 feet, which was no hazard to air traffic because it's flying way too high for that. But it's been conflated with these lower flying, different shaped ones. There was a cylindrical shaped object that was shot down over Alaska, I believe. So, was that a Chinese Zeppelin?
Let's go through them one by one. So, yes, the Chinese balloon was shot down on the 4th of February. Then on the 10th of February, over Dead Horse, Alaska, at 1:45 p.m. Eastern Time, there was a small unmanned object. This is the cylindrical silverish grey one, where they publicly said they could not identify any means of propulsion. That was shot down on the 10th of February. Then you have the following day. This is the one that they detected over Canada. Well, they detected it over Alaska, first of all. It crossed over into Canada. Again, small cylindrical object. This was traveling at 40,000 feet. The next day, February the 11th, shot down over the Yukon. Now, obviously, Biden did get permission from is it Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister.
Trudeau. Trudeau. I think it's only polite, if you're going to shoot something down over someone's country, to say, to check they're all right, they're okay with that.
Well, absolutely, because falling debris, I mean, they might have had troops on manoeuvres secretly, right underneath the thing, who knows? But yes, that was shot down on February the 11th. And then the following day after that, so you get 3 days in a row, 10th, 11th, and 12th, you have a different shaped UAP. This one is octagonal, flying at a lower
Mm-hmm.
altitude of 20,000 feet, but that's still pretty high up. I mean, that's I think your like 747, 737s travel at like 20 to 30,000 feet.
No, I think it's higher. It's about 40. They do get up to about 38, 40,000 feet. But, if you're flying at 20,000 feet, you're a hazard to all sorts of other kinds of... Yeah, it might not be a commercial airliner at its on a long haul flight at its cruising altitude. Yeah, that's going to be nearer 40,000 feet. But there'll be all sorts of other craft at 20,000 feet, light aircraft and the like. It's a hazard.
Absolutely.
You say that they detected no means of propulsion. Well, that's what you would have with a balloon, wouldn't you?
Well, the only one that they've stated that with was the first one on February the 10th. So this one on the 12th was a different shape. It was octagonal shaped. They identified that it was unmanned. Like I say, it was traveling at 20,000 feet. And yes, that was also shot down. That was at 2:42 p.m. Eastern time. All three of the objects, what they do share in common is that they were all shot down by Sidewinder missiles.
Yeah.
The first two from F-22 fighters, the third one from an F-16.
And if it, and of course that's a Sidewinder missile is an expensive bit of kit. I mean, what, $100,000 or something, $130,000. People are asking questions: why are we spending that much money on a missile to shoot down a balloon? If that's what it is, because as you say, those UFO stories have been conflated with the Chinese balloon.
Yes.
And is that do you think that's deliberate that they've said, this is just another balloon?
Absolutely, it's deliberate. You get different UFO sightings. That's a classic tactic, is to conflate it with something else that happened that is explainable. And then you just say, oh, look, we've got an explanation. Well, no, you've got an explanation for one of those things, but not the other. It's a bit like in the crop circle community, and I get quite angry about this. So you'll get some crop circles that are man-made. We know that. And then there'll be another crop circle that has traits that mean it cannot be man-made. And I'm not going to go into the details here and now. We've got other episodes for that. But they'll be conflated and they'll say, well, look, they're all man-made because this one was man-made. Well, no, that doesn't. Yeah. Anyway, so conflation is a classic tactic. But do you know what I'm getting huge vibes from? Because they've now come out and said, they initially came out and said, we don't know what these are. There was even one Air Force general said officially, formally to the press, we are not ruling out extraterrestrials. He said that
because he's not ruling out. Because he's not ruling out anything. We don't know what it is.
Yeah.
When we find the wreckage, we'll be more forthcoming, maybe, depending on what the wreckage is.
Well, I've got some interesting thoughts about the wreckage, so we'll come on to that. But what happened sort of almost or very, very quickly, within a matter of hours after that, there's an official government press officer comes out and starts making jokes to ridicule the idea of it being extraterrestrial at a press conference. To ridicule it. Well, that again is a classic tactic.
It's a classic tactic. I can see why they do it. They're making light of this story. With the Chinese balloon, the Chinese claim it was just a weather balloon. I can imagine a scenario
that's the one
where
on the 4th. That's the one that we're not counting as a UAP.
Yeah, but maybe they are all from. I mean, weather balloons. 60,000 feet is more like the altitude for a weather balloon. These other things are at an altitude where they're more. It's funny that their response is to just shoot them down. We've got these objects in the air. We don't know what they are. Let's shoot them down. They're not even over our country. Let's shoot it down. That seems. There's obviously some. I mean, at 40,000 feet, you can send an aircraft up to look at it, to fly around it.
Which they did.
So, have we got video of it? Have
Haha.
we got any?
Now, interesting you should come on to that. So the Chinese balloon, we got
Yeah,
loads of video footage of that.
yeah,
From the various aircraft. We've got video footage of it actually being shot down because we know that in the cabins of these aircraft, they are constantly taking video.
yeah.
These three on the 10th, 11th, and 12th, they won't release the footage.
Hmm.
But the Chinese balloon, they were instantly dropping the footage on that.
And also, I mean, it's straining relations between the US and China. I can imagine in China someone whose job it is to monitor the weather and regularly sends up weather balloons, just happening to mention within hearing of someone from the military or intelligence community, yeah, we send these balloons up and they drift all the way across the Pacific and they'll drift all the way across the continental United States, and the US never responds. And so the intelligence guy, the military guy, is going to think, that gives me an idea. So he goes to his signals intelligence people and says, you've been monitoring radio traffic from military air defense. Any mention on these particular dates of a balloon going out? Have they mentioned it to them? No, they've not even registered it. They've not talked about it. And he thought, well, next time we send a balloon up, why don't I put some military surveillance equipment on it? Nothing too expensive because we don't really know where this thing is going to go, and it'll be just pure chance if it happens to drift over something that we're interested in. But but for some reason, the military air defence have said, well, our defences weren't programmed to look for that kind of thing. So basically, what we do is narrow down the parameters. The example he gave was if you were looking to buy a car online, that you would go onto the web page and you would click 5-door hatchback and you would tick the box with a certain price range, and then you wouldn't see anything else but 5-door hatchbacks within that range. And so they had their radar set, just to make sure they're not responding to all kinds of stuff, extraneous stuff, that basically they're looking for fast flying things with a heat signature. And so that's why they never took any notice or didn't even pick them up. They didn't come up on the radar because they weren't looking for something like that. So the question is, why is this? Why have they suddenly decided now? Because no one would have spotted that balloon at 60,000 feet. Even a 200-foot balloon at 60,000 feet, that's way too small. You can't see a jumbo jet at that from the ground at that altitude.
There's so much to unpack on what you've just said there, Neil. I'm going to start backwards. So the first thing I have to say is they were all seen on radar. That's how they were aware of them.
Yeah, they were all seen on radar, but they also said we'd never seen these things on radar before because our settings were excluded objects that met that kind of travel in that kind of pattern. For some reason, they unclicked all the things that would narrow down the search to search everything and found balloons or other objects.
Okay. The other thing, what you mentioned about the weather balloons basically just drifting around, as I understand it, no, they're maneuverable. They can be controlled as to what direction they go.
But are they controlled?
Otherwise, otherwise they'd cause a problem. And when you look at this Chinese balloon that was shot down on February the 4th, that had drifted over 4 separate sensitive military sites. I say drifted. And that was why it was shot down ultimately, is because, look, it's very obviously spying on us. So they can absolutely maneuver these things around. And with any balloon at that height, you would have to be able to control it, because otherwise it is going to provide a threat to vehicles in the air.
It's a weather balloon.
Well, you've also got this aspect, and I have to shout out our Patreon patron, Toby, for a lot of this information. It's been really helpful on the old Discord, providing a lot of knowledge on this. He was explaining that balloons, basically they pop when they go too high. So you've got sort of internal pressure from the helium, and you've got the external pressure of the atmosphere. Well, the higher you go, the less external pressure there is. So if they go too high, they pop. And the way they
Hmm.
control what height you want them to go to is by controlling the amount of internal pressure. So if you want one to go at 80,000 feet, you have really low internal pressure, but you might have a much bigger balloon so that, you can fill it with more helium. I don't know the entire dynamics of that. But what you don't want is them sort of kind of drifting about anywhere, drifting over your house, Neil, and then popping, and then come crashing through your roof. So no, they have to be controllable, and they have to know where they're going. But that's not what the most recent, at the time of recording here, folks, it might change tomorrow. The most recent claim from the government is they're not claiming it's weather balloons. They're claiming they are hobby balloons.
Hobby balloons.
Hobby balloons.
And what are hobby balloons?
Well, I suppose they're kind of. I'm not entirely certain, but in the same way that we know I'm a semi-professional drone operator, so I will take an aircraft up into the air. I suppose it's like that, but with a balloon. But here's the thing, and again, I'm going to thank Toby for this very specific bit of information. In order to, now I knew this part, that in order to go above a certain height, so for example, my license covers me to go up to 200 feet. To operate at the kind of height we're talking about, 20,000 feet, 40,000 feet, 60,000 feet, you need express FAA flight clearance to operate at that height, and the license to operate it costs $200,000 a year. These are not hobby balloons that have been detected instantly. And here's the other thing. So in every case, it's not just been a case of they've launched fighters, the fighters have fired at them, they've blown them out the air. They've been detected, they've been followed and tracked, they've sent aircraft up to look at them, to fly around them, to get a visual on them, to get them on video. Where's those videos? We need to know. Why are they not in the public domain? I think John Greenwald is currently on that. He's the king of freedom of information access requests. He's currently on, looking into that one as we speak. But they've sent aircraft up to look at it. Now, these are experienced pilots. You must have had aviation experts looking at the footage, trying to determine what they are, and they can't say what they are. Now, if it's a hobby balloon or a weather balloon, they would be able to identify that really easily. Really easily. And let's not forget, these things have trackers in them as well. Now, a spy balloon, maybe not. All right, I'll acknowledge that one. But they would also recognise that it's a spy in the exact same way. The balloon that was shot down on February the 4th, they instantly indicated, well, they knew it was Chinese, they knew it was a balloon, they could see the equipment hanging underneath it. Yes, they believed it was for surveillance purposes. Yes, China argued it was a weather balloon. Could be either or, but, you see the equipment hanging below it. It's easy to identify what it actually is. Maybe not the nitty-gritty details, but they knew it was a balloon for monitoring things. But in the ones on the 10th, 11th, and 12th that were shot down on those dates, they've not been able to identify them. They've just said silverish grey cylindrical object. Second one, a cylindrical object. We weren't given a colour for that, so I don't know if it's a different colour. And the third one, an octagonal shape. Yeah, they're not balloons.
Okay, here's a question that pertains to the balloon as well as to whatever these other craft might have been. They shot the balloon down with a Sidewinder missile, and people asked, well, how did you do that? There was speculation as to, because normally you'd fire a Sidewinder missile, it would use its heat-seeking ability to find the tail jet of a plane, and it would fly into that, it would hit it and blow up. That wouldn't happen with the balloon. It wouldn't be able to find. There's no heat signature from the balloon for it to detect. There's nothing substantial for it to hit to set it off. So there was speculation that it was either a timed missile or it was, I don't know. They had to manually set it off when it got near. I imagine that's very difficult to do because missiles go very, very fucking fast. That must have been the same issue when they were shooting down these other objects. It's an object floating in the sky, no heat signature, no visible means of propulsion. What did they use to shoot it down?
That's an excellent. I mean, they've said in every case that they've used sidewall. To be honest, I'm not speaking about the Chinese balloon on the 4th of February. I haven't. To be honest, I haven't really done my research into that because I've just.
I know.
Okay, we know what that is.
I mean, I know a Sidewinder missile can be programmed to. It doesn't just shoot at a heat signature. I know it can shoot at if a plane finds itself being detected by unknown or presumably hostile radar. The plane can itself, without the pilot even having to bother with it, it'll just arm a missile and fire it at the source of the radar beam.
Right.
That it can do that. A couple of coppers in the north of England nearly got taken out because of their radar gun. They were waving it around, and a low flying jet on an exercise over the North Sea detected it was being tracked by radar. It was out of sight of these two coppers. And it was only because the pilot noticed it was happening and switched it off because he was only on an exercise and shouldn't be firing a missile at anything on an exercise in the North Sea. So
interesting.
They are versatile, I guess, as far as I know about it. The question is why now? And I feel like I want to open a can of worms here.
Ooh.
Because a meme that I've seen from the far right and from the far left on social media is whenever you see the media making an awful lot of some story that's not particularly grave, but they all get very excited about something, that what you should do is look for what they're trying to distract you from. And we know that in the United States, at that time, there was a train derailment near a town of East Palestine in Ohio, I believe it is. Where was it? And which caused a massive explosion and chemical contamination. Thousands of people have been evacuated. But that big story was a footnote. It was because all the attention was on the UFOs, and I thought about when the Trump administration released that footage of UFOs, the flying Tic Tacs taken by the US Navy pilots. Well, that was right at the height of the whole pandemic thing, wasn't it? And all the news was about the pandemic, and let's just distract you from that a little bit about what the government is or isn't doing. Let's talk about UFOs. And today in the supermarket. Where was it? Front page of the Daily Star Sunday. Massive picture of a mocked up picture of a bloke being beamed up into a flying saucer. Can't get to work today, Chief, as I've been abducted by aliens. It says Britain's bosses can't get job done because of extraterrestrials. So those pesky aliens have a lot to answer for. Now ET is abducting staff and making them miss work. It's hitting productivity, say HR bosses who report a sudden rise in extraterrestrial excuses. I mean, it's a bollock story. It's about people
that's a
saying,
non-story.
It's a non-story, but again, why is that front page of a paper? What's that? That's a distraction, isn't it?
Well, for our overseas listeners, the Daily Star is like the lowest form of gutter press. I'm
it's probably one
an
above
American equivalent.
I would say maybe National Enquirer, something like that.
It's where you get like basically nonsense bullshit story, but it's much more sort of. It's practically goose stepping on the
in terms of
its content is very ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, and very.
But that's front page. That's front page of the news today.
Okay. I think less of a can of worms maybe than you thought with that one. I'm inclined to agree that yes, the timing of these things um, is often picked. Yeah, at a time when it suits them the best. But what that would also suggest is that a excuse me, these things are happening, like UAPs are being shot down all the time. For them to be able to pick a time of it happening when they're putting it out into the media.
Unless, like the balloon, they said, "Well, we had our radar settings on it. We weren't looking for anything that would be slow moving and that size and with no heat signature."
I find that a bit of a bullshit answer, to be honest.
Oh no, I can see why they do it. Yeah,
I think if
there's
they
all
can
sorts
see
of
it,
things
they're
up in
going to
the
see
sky.
it. Yeah, and they'll be monitoring the skies all the time. I mean, otherwise they wouldn't have caught the Chinese balloon in the first place.
No, but someone from the Pentagon said, "Well, yeah, these things may be flying. Well, if it's flying on the wind, then all Chinese weather balloons will be flying over the United States
Yeah,
at some
because
point."
these things can be
So,
controlled. You can control what direction they go. Yeah, I'm not. So yeah, so if it was chosen for its timing to draw attention away from this disaster. So yes, that would mean that this is happening all the time. It would mean also, and this kind of leads into my personal theory about all this coming out at the moment, because I can see the idea either it's happening all the time or they're aware of these things in the air all the time. Maybe they don't always shoot them down. Because that makes big news. But
well, I mean, the thing, I mean,
it would
they've shot
suggest
it
it's a
down
step
over.
in the direction of disclosure, doesn't it?
Mm,
Because
no,
they're not going to
no.
release this information. Right. Here's my personal theory, and it doesn't it doesn't contradict the idea of it being timed for release. I think they're testing the waters bit by bit by bit. We had like the 2017 confirmation that yes, the tic tac toe, as you say, the 3 bits of video footage from the USS Nimitz. Yes, the Pentagon confirmed that they were accurate, that they were real. We've got that sort of being drip fed. They're testing the water. They're seeing what the general public reaction is. Does it cause a panic? Does it not cause a panic? How's it affecting the stock market? Because let's not forget the importance of that from this perspective. I think on the back of the Chinese balloon, they've come out with these things. They can't say, look, we've got these devices, like, we don't know where they come from. We don't know what they are, but they're in the air above us all the time. They can't do that. So they have to say, we've detected some and we've taken care of it. The only way to take care of it is to shoot it down. So, yeah.
It's a very aggressive response. I mean, previous reports we've had of UFOs, particularly the Tic Tacs, the flying Tic Tacs, was that these craft were flying at a speed and in a manner that we're not able to replicate. It speaks to a technology that's way beyond what we have. That a human pilot probably wouldn't even survive being inside it for the G forces that they'd be under. Suddenly we've got these things just floating in the sky, just up there being shot down. I mean, they're over a remote area, which for one thing means they're not doing any harm. It means you can shoot them down safely, knowing they're not going to land on anyone's head. But it also makes the wreckage very difficult to recover.
I think there was an
shooting
element
over the
of them,
north of Canada in the middle of winter. Yeah, that's going to be hard to find.
I think there was an element of them deliberately waiting until they were over an area that, benefit of the doubt, where it would cause least harm.
All right,
before
where it would
shooting
cause
them down.
least harm. I remember the story. Do you remember Skylab back in the 80s? And this Skylab, this space station was It was coming out of orbit. It was going to crash to Earth. They weren't sure exactly. Well, they eventually realized it was going to. They worked out it was going to land somewhere in Lapland, a very sparsely populated area, and so they decided to. And this thing was the size of a bus. It's coming down. It's a large object coming down. If it hits you, it'll kill you. However, Lapland is really sparsely populated. Nevertheless, they decided to evacuate the population. So they got all these people onto helicopters and flew them out. And it was later worked out that those people had a much greater chance of being killed in a helicopter crash than being hit by that Skylab, statistically. So, if this thing, you've got this unknown object in the sky, and, let's face it, the US military, like any military, is prepared to sacrifice lives or put lives at risk. How much are they putting at risk of shooting something down? Not over a city, I'll grant you, but maybe over an area that's populated, sparsely populated, farmland and such. The chances are it's not going to hit anyone. And then because the important thing is to recover the wreckage to find out exactly what we got here. That's what there's a real, from an intelligence point of view, they really need to know what these things are, because what's coming next? They've spotted something, don't know what it is, treat it as hostile, shoot it down. Next time they go up there, they're going to be faced with something that can far outperform any of their capabilities and just obliterate them. What if there's retaliation? How do you know?
This is the point I'm making. Is I believe that the powers that be know exactly what they are already. They know about them. And, they're just slowly drip feeding the information to the public so that, they can gauge the public's response in terms of panic, in terms of stock market. I think they're the two big ones. They can gauge the response by drip feeding it, but also by drip feeding it, that's how you assimilate. That's how you bring about. So, years ago, I used to work in the automotive industry, and I trained managers to be managers. And one of the big things that we used to talk about often was change management. If you want to bring in a new style of working, or like if you want to revolutionize your production line or whatever it might be, the best way to do that is in small drip feed sessions. You don't turn up to work one day, right, everything's all changed. You do it bit by bit by bit. So people, they assimilate the information, and they assimilate the new way of working or whatever it is gradually. But bigger than that, and this was talked about, quite often people won't notice the change. And that's exactly what's happening in terms of UAPs, UFOs, flying saucers, whatever you want to call them, these visitors. That is exactly what is happening in society today. We are being drip fed more and more information about them. And it's a form of change management.
No, I don't. I mean, I'm seeing it from the point of view of the extraterrestrials. Presumably, these craft don't have living beings in them that are being sacrificed. They're not saying we need you to go and float around the United States until you get shot down. Yeah, great. That's
right.
So we're going to send something up there.
Amongst the pigeons on that. What proof do we have that they were actually shot down?
We don't. I mean, as I said at the start, these UFO stories are things where we have to take. We're entirely dependent on the military, on their report. Whatever they say it is, we've got to either believe them or find a reason to disbelieve them. But what we don't have is access to the data.
No, we can question.
Only that we can decide we don't believe the conclusions they're telling us, because we can find anomalies in their story.
Here's the thing: they were so quick with the footage on the Chinese balloon. So quick with it.
Yeah. Okay, that's a balloon. We can show, and we.
Yeah.
And also, the US recently has been picking a fight with China. The war in Ukraine is, the Chinese are watching that very closely to see how the West will respond. Mm-hmm. It's gone a bit quiet now, but a couple of months ago, there was a real threat about, what America has always maintained this position of strategic ambivalence, that they're not prepared to say what they would do if the Chinese invaded Taiwan. And it looks like the Chinese now have the capability to invade Taiwan, and they're looking to see, they're watching the Russian operation, see how that goes. Maybe they're deciding what they're doing. But basically, things have hotted up with China recently, and now we've got this balloon that they're blaming on China. And then these other objects that have been conflated into the story because they're shooting stuff down over the US, stuff they hadn't noticed before. I don't know what these. I mean, if these UFOs are up there, suppose they are extraterrestrial, I would suggest that their purpose is to go up there, and their purpose is to be shot down so that the extraterrestrials can examine our capabilities.
What if they're just a monitoring device?
Yeah, it's a monitoring device, but it might be a monitoring device to see what we're capable of. I'll give you an example. When the Israelis invaded the Lebanon in 1982, they took out the Syrian air defences in the Bekaa Valley in one afternoon, and they did that with drones. Basically, they'll put a drone up, it would fly over, Syrian air defence would track it and shoot it down, but in those few seconds between tracking it and firing their missile, the drone would have detected the source of the radar beam and sent the coordinates back to its base, and then they would have launched a surface-to-surface missile. So we're listening to all this traffic where Syrians have shot down a drone. Yeah, we shot down an Israeli aircraft. Next thing you know, they go quiet because they've been hit by a missile and they're dead. And their air defences were taken out in one afternoon, and it caused a massive panic. I think that was one of the events that led to the end of the Cold War, because the air defense system that the Soviets had given the Syrians, which was manned by East German technicians in the Bekaa Valley, it was a replica of what they had in Eastern Europe. So suddenly they realized, oh shit, Western technology can take out our air defense. Basically, we have no air cover in Europe now. The NATO can hit us with impunity. They just like the Israelis have done here. So yeah, it was a big deal. But basically, those drones were put up to be shot down because they would gather an awful lot of information about the enemy, but in the process of being shot down. So maybe it's a similar kind of thing. That they, whoever it is, now knows an awful lot more about the US's air defences, about where the radar, where it's tracked from, where the aircraft come from, what kind of missile they'll use. They've got it all now.
It's possible.
And probably cheap at half the price.
And so I'm putting that together in my head with sort of it's only vague knowledge that I can recall at the moment, but there are a lot of reported cases of UAPs interfering with nuclear weapons. When they're kind of in storage, basically nullifying them, making them useless. You hear a lot of stories like that, and I'm wondering, I can see these things being monitoring device. I mean, we talk about extraterrestrials, and I'm always little bit uncomfortable with that term because we don't know where they come from. It might be that we actually share our planet with other sentient species. They might live under the sea,
or in another dimension.
In a pocket dimension. It might be the hollow Earth theory. Might play into this. So, yeah, there might be extraterrestrial, there might be terrestrial, but whoever this intelligence is, I can see them wanting to keep a close eye on what everybody's doing, especially at the moment when we are, at a time of war that could escalate into a world war. It's a scary time, but monitoring devices, it might be to monitor the state of the air pollution that we're putting out into the planet. We are effectively destroying the planet. And it might be these devices are there to repair the planet. Who knows? Who actually knows? Well, somebody in a government position knows.
To me, it seems an extreme reaction. You find something in the sky, you don't know what it is. It's not even over your own territory. So you ask your neighbour for permission to just shoot this thing down.
Well, the claim is that it could present a danger to vehicles in the air, basically to aircraft. That's the reason
Yeah.
it was given. If it wanders into a flight path or something like that. But I'm not. I'm not buying it. If I'm honest,
No,
I'm not
no, I
buying it.
don't.
But there we go. So, so is your belief these things are Chinese in origin and balloons that have?
No, I mean, I was led to believe that they're all part of the same story as the balloon. That they were just different objects, different shape, different size, but essentially part of the same story. It seems clear to me now that they're not. But I don't know what they are, or it hasn't been satisfactorily explained what they thought they were and what they thought they were doing and what threat they were perceived to possess or present.
So you're not buying into the
Mysterious.
official answer, which is they are hobby balloons.
Why would you shoot a hobby balloon down with a 130-gram missile in it?
And more to that, they'd know exactly what it was if it was a hobby balloon.
Yeah,
it's like official. They don't know what these things are.
I don't know if it was
where hobby balloons were at all times.
Was it a B2? What kind of bomber was it? I forgot what aircraft it was, but I don't know whether they have machine guns on them. It wouldn't have been able to use its machine gun to shoot down the Chinese spy balloon because that was way higher. You're talking 2 kilometers higher than the plane's capable of going. So missiles the obvious way, but these things, you can sort of fly around and have a little burst of machine gun fire. If it's a hobby balloon, down it goes, and not much damage done. Although firing live rounds, it's going to come down somewhere.
Yeah, and do you know what? The whole it's a balloon. Do you know what? And I'm getting major vibes from this entire story of Roswell. Yes, we've seen a UFO. It's crashed. Oh no, it was a weather balloon.
Yeah,
I'm getting real vibes from that. I feel like in 30, 40 years' time, we'll look back on this as being like a modern day for now, not for then, modern day Roswell. And it's like, and people believed they were actually balloons. I think it'll be,
maybe, but for me, the story
seen as funny
as a whole just doesn't add up. Whether it's a balloon, whether it's a Chinese craft of some kind, whether it's something from another world, the story doesn't add up either way.
It really doesn't. Well, who knows what information will come out in the next few days, weeks, months, years. But we will definitely be keeping an eye on it. And for my part, I'm going to take it further and say I think this is a conscious effort to get information out to the public, and it's drip feeding towards disclosure. I'm fairly confident of that. We disagree on that
part
point.
Way, is it? Yeah.
We disagree on that point. But what do you think, listeners? Do let us know exactly what you think about these UAPs that have been shot down. We want to hear your thoughts, no matter what they are. And you can contact us and let us know.
Up to a point.
No, I want to know what everybody thinks. It's good to hear all sides of the story. So let us know. Let us know via Facebook, Twitter, by searching Aliens Explored. You can email us, aliensexplored@gmail.com. If you're one of our Patreon patrons, then you get exclusive access to the Discord server, and we've been discussing this particular subject over there in some detail. It's been quite the interesting conversation that's been happening there. And you can do that by going to patreon.com/aliens explored and picking a tier that suits you, and you help us to make more of these episodes, which we're hoping to do for the foreseeable, forever. That's the plan.
I thought you meant actually these episodes of which we're hoping to do 4. or maybe 5 for the foreseeable future.
For the foreseeable, and yeah. So have a look at our Patreon as well. There's links in the description to all the things I've mentioned. I won't do a join us next time because this has been a special, so I don't know how to end this recording.
Tell us what you think. We're always happy to hear from you, and if you're a hobby balloonist, we'd be interested in hearing all about it. Well, I would.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely want to hear the perspective of a hobby balloonist on this. But what we can say, as we always say, and it's more pertinent now than ever before, keep watching the skies. Take care for now.
Bye-bye. Aliens Explored is a Fecal Films production in association with Juicy Falls. Music by Darren Mafucci and editing by Stu Jackson. Find us on Twitter or Facebook by searching Aliens Explored, or visit us on aliensexplored.com.